And we're getting into a conversation which is a difficult one. Sometimes it's heavy when we think about it, but maybe we don't think about it in the proper way. And if we did, perhaps there would be a difference. Joseph Okhako is the CEO of the Ethics Institute of East Africa. I really hope that I did not butcher your name. Okhako.
You tried.
I tried. So at least give me that. Yes. Joseph, karibu sana and welcome to Kenya's Biggest Conversation.
Thank you.
You're in the hot seat.
Yes, I feel it.
With a hot topic.
Yes.
And there are very many issues that we're talking about around that. The pain of corruption in Kenya, and really unfurling what that pain is and what we feel. And really, when we talk about corruption, what exactly are we talking about? So we're getting into all of that. So thank you for being here this morning, as we do.
Thank you.
And your organization tasked with, looking at some of these things, for sure. But let's welcome you properly. At least something before we get to the pain, right? Mm-hmm. Before the pain is the proverb, and it's from DR Congo City.
Yes, this is our final proverb from the country of DR Congo. The eye always envies what is forbidden.
Joseph?
The eye always envies what is
what do you make of that?
You will always go for that which has been which you have been told not to. All right, it's just like what is in the Bible. The Bible indicates that when God created man and even put them in the Garden of Eden, He says, "Don't touch this tree." But then what happened is that whatever He told them not to touch is what actually
He touched.
They touched.
Yeah, and here we are. Here we are with all of this drama because they were told not to touch.
Now we are in this situation because we are told not to touch. That's the situation we are in.
It is indeed. Oh, good observation. So, here we are. In all this drama that we talk about, corruption here, impunity there, theft here, every tax, underdevelopment, it just becomes a little bit heavy here and there. But let's start with, the Ethics Institute of East Africa. Mm-hmm. There's an Ethics Institute. What is it that this institute does?
First of all, my name is Joseph Patterson Okhako. I'm the CEO, I'm the founding and the chair of Ethics Institute of East Africa. And the institute basically is formed with the main goal of institutionalizing ethics within the East African region. It goes beyond the integrity that we are always fond of. It goes beyond the Public Officers Ethics Act that we are all fond of. It goes beyond the Economic and the Crimes Act that we are all fond of. Matters of ethics, matters of consciousness, right, is what we are talking about here. If you look at what is happening currently, we have all the legislation, and including the Constitution of Kenya is very much indicative of what exactly we need to do in terms of eradicating corruption. All that we have done is not making headway, all right? Because we have institutionalized corruption to the level where it is part of us. And so for us to get out of this, I thought that probably the base is now to touch on the mind, touch on the conscience of the person, so that we can be able to now talk one-on-one and see how we can be able to reach somewhere. That is the whole idea behind Ethics Institute of East Africa. And so we discuss a lot of it. We train people on matters ethics. Ethics at the workplace, for example, ethics in human resource management. All right, we all know that we have the relevant legislations guiding recruitment and the promotions in this country. But then with the aspect of nepotism, tribalism, recruiting people that are not, that do not conform to the requirements of the organization is all behind Ethics Institute of East Africa to be able to ensure that those who are recruited actually are ethical in terms of their attitude and performance.
Okay.
That is Ethics East Africa.
Now, based on that, what is corruption?
Now, corruption as defined within the relevant legislations or statutes is abuse of office. It starts with the abuse of office. You are put in office and you abuse your office. You make use of embezzlement of money, and all those things revolve around corruption. And it goes in the what can I add there? Embezzlement, fraud, dishonesty. unfairness, nepotism, abuse of public trust, and so on and so forth. That is corruption.
All that is corruption.
All that is corruption.
Okay.
The effect of it is corruption. Yes, what comes out of that, dishonesty, disloyal, unfaithfulness to your employer and so on and so forth, is all about corruption.
It's all corruption.
Yes.
Because usually we chalk it up to, all right, if somebody took money from the office or if somebody then uses public funds for their own benefit,
exactly,
we just say that is corruption. But
Yes,
you've named a number of other things
Yes.
that would then end up in the basket of corruption.
Yes, exactly. Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right.
If you are a CEO of a state corporation, for example, and you allow a tender process to go the way that it's not supposed to go, that's also corruption. Exactly, yes.
Okay. Why is it such a problem in so many of our countries today?
Now, I will basically talk about our history, and it's about culture that we have that we allowed this culture to take root into our system. It starts from, I will basically talk about Kenya, for example. After independence, what happened is that we came up with this concept of Arambe, all right, which was a very good concept, pulling together resources, pulling together our energies so that we can be able to maybe build a bridge or build an office and so on and so forth. But then it was abused. It was abused and it got entrenched into our culture as if it is part of what we should be doing. The chiefs could come to your home when the president or a senior government official is coming to do a fundraising and he has been given a target of 10,000 shillings those days. A chief will come to your home and he wants you to donate something to also participate in the fundraising. Maybe give 200 shillings or 300 shillings. And you don't have the money because maybe your background is very low. But then the chief goes for the chicken. He takes your chicken, goes to sell. He sells a lot of money, accounts for the other money during the fundraising, and the other money he puts in the pockets. And you being a villager, you will not complain because you are fearing you will be harassed. And so it became a norm that this is just a common thing that the chiefs do or the village headmen do, and it entrenched to us. Now it has reached a situation whereby if you are driving on the road and the police officer flags you, the police officer is not intending to ask you anything, maybe. Although in most cases they are intending to ask for whatever they want to ask. But then what comes to your mind when you're driving and the police officer flags you down? He wants something. So you start looking at how much money do I have in my pockets? All right? So it has now reached to that level. It has gone further now, where now in procurement is a normal thing to happen. That now we even budget for corruption. You have... You know very well, the process of budgeting begins with planning, and then you do the budgets and so on and so forth, and then you do the procurement. But then you discover that certain tenders or contracts are actually tailor-made for specific cartels, certain people who should be given. And it is so clear that nothing is wrong with that anyway, when we know it's actually wrong. Well, that is what leads to inflation, of course. That leads to high cost of doing the project that we are supposed to undertake. And then it affects everything that the government may have planned to achieve on behalf of Mwananchi. That is actually the problem. It started way back. And the previous governments have not been able to deal with it effectively. Why? There was attempts to deal with it during the Kibaki era. The first year, 2 years, everything went on very well, and then everything collapsed on the way. Why? Because what happens is that when you get into office today, if I get into office today as a president, the first thing that these cartels will do is to come around me and show me how to do things. And so if I have all the vigor, I have all the energies to fight them, of course they will put me in the box. All right? And then that is a problem. So during those days, we had some success stories to write about. It didn't actually take us too far. Uhuru Kenyatta came in. He tried actually even reading the Riots Act to the government officials. It worked for some time. It didn't actually succeed.
What worked?
Huh?
What worked for some time?
Yeah, we saw some people being suspended from office, some people being told to step aside. And of course, that was a very good indication. That is a clear indication that maybe, because actually stopping corruption, it has to be from the top. Somebody must lead the way to deal with the issues of corruption. If you are a CEO in a state corporation, you must lead your officers in saying no to corruption. If you are a president, you must lead your cabinet secretaries in saying no to corruption, and in very clear language for them to understand. All right, it can't be political. This one has to be very administrative and very disciplined way of dealing with it.
Okay.
Now we are here where we are here today because of not having taken interest so much in dealing with this issue.
Why has it been so difficult for government after government to fight? And it's not just Kenya. It's countries on the continent. It's countries around the world. Why do you think it's so difficult for some governments to fight corruption?
Because corruption also fuels some economies. It supports some economies. All right. Take for example a country like Russia, which is ranked so poorly on the TI index, is one of the countries with very high level of corruption. All right. And that's why where I sit, I have never thought in my life that you can completely eradicate corruption in any country. Even USA has its own level of corruption. Switzerland has its own level of corruption. That's why I have never seen on the TI index a country that has been able to score 100% on the score.
But they can start somewhere.
The beauty is that they need to start somewhere. And these countries that have done very well on the TI index actually they started from somewhere. Right? They started from somewhere and reached where they are today. They have very good scores is because they realized their mistakes and took deliberate measures to ensure that corruption does not get into the system as a culture.
Okay. Yesterday, as in 24 hours ago, not even 24 hours, the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service, Felix Koskei, directed the suspension of 6 chief executive officers for alleged involvement in corruption and procurement irregularities within their respective institutions. And this was for immediate release from the Executive Office of the President by way of the Office of the State House spokesperson. Right? So there were a number of people under the advisement that came from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission that these individuals were under investigation.
Yes.
Kera was under them. They wrote to the cabinet. Right. They wrote to the cabinet secretary for the Ministry of Water and Sanitation to do his thing there. They also then wrote to the cabinet secretary for Public Service to do his thing there. They wrote to the board of the National Museums to do his thing. They also then wrote to the cabinet secretary for Gender to do her thing there. And then they called for the suspension of folks who are at Ketrako, etc., etc. It came to quite a number of people. In addition to that, they then wrote to the Inspector General of Police to suspend 67 officers. It was, it would look like the butcher had come to town. And was saying, you know what, we have heard from the EACC that investigation is taking place. Charges have not been proffered, but there is an investigation. On that alone, tell them to go home. Is that enough?
Now, we are starting from somewhere. And I've said you start from somewhere and you lead the way. I was on Radio Maisha a few weeks ago and I made a comment. I made a statement that I have known the president to be a very action-oriented person and that he will get tired one of these days. And I used a Swahili statement that Nyundo itatembea. I didn't know that it will happen yesterday. It has just started. Now that is actually a clear indication. It's not enough, but at least we are starting from somewhere. Now, my experience for the many 25 years that I've been in the field, I have always advocated for what is happening yesterday. Now, this is my reason why I'm doing it. You may be intending to be appointed in a government office next week. But there is a case that is under investigation. My advice has been that the EACC or DCI should be able to advise the appointing authority not to appoint you for the time being until the investigations are over. And either you are found to be culpable or not culpable in a court of law. That has been my approach. Now, for reason being that these two institutions, the DCI and DACs, are the ones who can be able to investigate and say either there is a case or there is no case. You will be presented, and then you will also defend yourself. It is true or it is not true. Once it is proven that it is not true, you can be given appointment. Because if the president intends to appoint you, definitely he has an interest in what you are doing. He will definitely appoint you one way or another once these two institutions have indicated that you are not actually corrupt. Now, in the past, this has not been happening. You find people who are involved in corruption, and then you are told that there has not been proven information to show that this person is actually corrupt. And then you find them in office. When they reach those offices, they start covering the tracks. And I had a discussion with one very senior official at the Public Service Commission at that time. I think she has already retired, and I had an argument with her that we are public officers in public offices, at that time being the head of ethics and integrity in one state department, this organization in this country. And I told her, you are making our life very difficult, madam. You are sending to us directors and CEOs who are tainted, who are corrupt in their minds, and you want us to continue running the affairs of corruption in these public institutions. Things are becoming very difficult for us, because when these directors come in office, they have their own interests to meet. They have their own objectives, all right? And I remember one person asked, "Who is Joseph?" And why this issue of anti-corruption? Is it so necessary to have anti-corruption function in this institution? And clearly the person wasn't happy that I'm actually head of an anti-corruption unit in a public institution. So you see now, when you have people like those ones getting into public offices, and you don't know their attitude, or they are spoken for so well to the appointing authority, and now they have been appointed, it becomes very difficult for the state and public officers to actually ensure there is no corruption in those institutions. And that has been the problem.
We speak of corruption in this country as though it's a disease for which we quite haven't found the medication or the treatment that will eliminate it. And yet, the unfortunate thing about it is, even if it were a disease, it's something that is it's embedded in human beings. We understand corruption through the expression of other human beings, other Kenyans. And for something to be expressed by a human being, either they must have knowledge of it, or it's something that is part and parcel of their makeup. So they do not actually even have a problem manifesting it. Why do I say this? You see, the very essence of the law presupposes that people will want to do things which are wrong.
Yes.
Because if that was not the case, then we would not need laws, because we would know exactly what to do and we would do it. But when you are in a country like ours, where you have laws and you have laws, but it appears that those are the very laws that people then use as instruments to work against the very rule of the law that was supposed to be in existence. One, an example that was demonstrated by the immediate former president, Uhuru, who swore an oath at the presidency to adhere to the norms of the constitution, and would blatantly and openly ignore court summons. So, the power of example that then resonates and then provides a platform from which others can then take a cue is that if the head of state can ignore court orders, it means he's disregarding the law. So if he's disregarding the law, what then do you think will happen? Because when you talk of corruption, and the example you've just given, you're saying people who are in leadership whom you would think would lead the charge in showing how best to abide by the dictates of the law are the people who, they don't question it. They actually find ways of going about it. So we have been led by example over several presidencies. So is it then any wonder that despite the institutions we have, corruption is still not just a norm in this country, it's a growth industry?
It is. Actually, it's a problem we are in at the moment. And that's why I have said that the best way is to have a leader who decides that this is now going to be my calling. You know, the same way you become a pastor and you say, I'm going to spread the gospel. We are looking forward to the day we will have a leader who will say, this is my calling. As to what, for example, what happened to Singapore and the other countries that have really controlled corruption so much. Can we be able, the leader comes and says, this is my calling. I swear unto God that in this country there shall be no corruption. Of course, it's not possible to say there will be 100% ethical culture in an organization, because you have rightfully said that by nature we are tuned to do wrong things even when we are supposed to be doing the right things. The Bible says when God created us man, when created man, he directed them to choose either wrong or right. But we have majority of us who are always choosing the wrong path. And we feel that it is okay to choose the wrong path. The wrong path. And we leave the other part which is very free with very few people going to heaven, and we choose the wrong path where we have millions and millions of people going. A clear indication that that is the way. But I am sure Kenya is not unique. Kenya is just a country like any other country. They will look forward to that day. There will be that leader, and maybe that leader may be the current president, because what he has done yesterday to me is, I looked at that. I was sent this information somewhere when I was at the airport, and I said, just a moment. This is something I spoke about some years back, that there should be deliberate move by the leadership to direct people to do the right thing when they are not doing it. My problem now yesterday was, where was the board of directors?
Of what? Of
these institutions that the head of service was directing. Because by their formation, actually the people who hire and fire the CEOs of state departments are supposed to be board of directors. So if you find the board of directors seated and they're not doing anything until they get a directive from a head of civil service.
But should that be the case really?
It should not be the case.
Yes, exactly.
It should not be the case, because now they are putting the head. You know what is going to happen one day? Somebody will go to court and say, what is the role of the head of civil service in micromanaging?
They're actually going to go to court.
Exactly.
They'll say this is unprocedural.
It's unprocedural. And we have bought, and let me tell you something. I have said this. Can we have board of directors appointed based on merit and integrity? Because that will actually, I'm not saying for all these institutions, but I'm talking about those sensitive institutions.
It has to be for all institutions.
All right? Because let me tell you why.
If you're cutting out a disease, you're cutting out a disease.
Yeah. Now, for start, as an example, very sensitive institutions should be led by boards that have been vetted. They are very much sure they are people, men and women of integrity.
Brother, all boards are vetted in this country.
Now, unfortunately, the criteria being used to appoint this board of directors, nobody knows. Because, I'll give you a very good example. A guy calls me some years back and asks me, Joe, I want you to help me. My son has just completed university, and we are looking. I want him to get employed. I'm going to sell my land. If you can be able to help me get somebody, employ my son. I said, just a moment. Sell your land to get money to bribe, to buy a position for your son who has just completed university. And yes, do you think that is proper? He said, because I'm unable to get him a job. Now, a few years later, of course, I didn't go beyond that. I said, those are things I cannot do. Then a few years later, this man is appointed on a board as a member of a board of directors. And he sends me a text message. I said, my brother, I've just got an appointment. Now, tell me, what is in the mind of this person when he gets into the office as a member of a board?
Okay, so what are the effects of corruption? We talk about it as if it's something over there, right? And how often do we look at how it affects the country? The numbers that have been thrown out. Former President Uhuru Kenyatta talked about 2 billion shillings a day being lost to corruption. But when you look at that 2 billion shillings, perhaps the way we can see what effects it has on the country is if we ask ourselves, well, all right, 2 billion shillings today, what can it do? 2 billion shillings on a Monday morning, what can it do? 2 billion shillings on Tuesday, what can it do? 2 billion shillings on Wednesday. What can it do? 2 billion shillings on Thursday. What can you do? From Monday to Friday, let's just take away Saturday and Sunday. From Monday to Friday, if truly that number is correct, 10 billion shillings. And what it can do today, where would we be? 10 billion shillings would put a good dent in the capitation, for example, that has not gone to schools.
For students going to school.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
10 billion shillings, from what we've been told, can build a dispensary, level 1 or level 2 hospital.
Exactly.
And equip it.
Yes.
Where people do not have.
Yes.
And equip it.
Yes.
10 billion shillings today could build a market whereby people are looking for certain things to be done.
Yes.
10 billion shillings could complete a road.
Yes.
So the effects of corruption, we may not want to see it, but
they're there.
They're there.
Yes. Actually, corruption squeezes the country of the available resources. Right? Currently, for example, I think the problems we have with the present government, when they came into office, they discovered that we don't have enough money in the coffers, right? And this comes as a result of poor economic planning, where we have people planning for their pockets, are not planning for the economy, they are planning for their pockets. Inflated cost of building bridges, building roads. Look about the Camarera and the other dams that were to be constructed for the local people to use to get water, to access water. Those dams were never constructed. Why? Because somebody decided that instead of looking at the community, he's looking at himself. And that's exactly the problems that we find ourselves. The roads, a road that is supposed to be constructed at 2 billion shillings ends up being constructed at 15 billion shillings. Is a common feature here. You've seen some donors, for example, walking away, refusing to make to meet their financial obligations, to donate, to provide grants for construction of roads. Those are effects of corruption. Those are actually effects of corruption. You've seen what happened at the KEMSA before the president came in. The inflation of drugs and hospitals not having drugs. Those are effects of corruption. You are sick, you go to hospital in the local areas, and they write to you, you have to go and look for drugs elsewhere. And yet the government is buying drugs and putting at KEMSA. Those are the effects of corruption. Now, we look at the educational system. The government is subsidizing education, giving money for schools. And they strictly say students should be provided with the books. But still, the principals and head teachers are asking for money for purchase of books and asking for parents to buy books. That is actually where we are currently. You hear the Minister of Education, the CS Education, saying there should be no remedial in schools.
Yes.
But then you are called for a PTA meeting and the principal says you should pay 2,000 shillings, 3,000 shillings per term for your child to undergo to be involved in remedial. You don't pay, the child is chased away. Those are actually effects of corruption in black and white. All right. If you go, for example, back to the schools, have you seen a school where you are being asked go and buy uniform anywhere? You always told go and buy at the school.
Well, a public school?
Yes, go and buy from the school.
Or
right?
you're given a specific
You are told a specific place where you can go and buy the uniform.
Yeah.
All right? And when you go there, first of all, the material, the quality is bad. You want to buy elsewhere, you can't go and buy. That is actually what corruption is doing. Now look at the, if you are a whistleblower in a public institution, all right? The intimidation, the maiming, the frustration, the victimization you will go through as a whistleblower is quite enormous. Look at the Sangale case, for example, of Masai Mara University.
Yeah.
And my case, I'm actually, I think my case is also a similar one, where you see corruption and you tell your boss, no, this is not how it should be done. This is the procedure. Then you are victimized, you are demoted. They demoted me twice. They demoted me first. They thought they have not even done it. They did it again.
Because you did what?
Because I told them corruption is not required.
It's not required?
It's not required. Okay. We have a procedure to follow on how you should do procurement processes. So whatever is happening, I have never seen it anywhere in a book, anywhere written. That is a procedure. And then you are told, we don't want you here. You are demoted, transferred, then they forget. They actually demoted you. They demote you again, second level. And then they start a process. The same process that Sangale went through. Now, the problem with the whistleblowing in this country, we don't have a framework to protect whistleblowers. Public officers...
Do you really think it's accidental we don't have a framework?
It's not accidental, because I have written, I've actually... You know why I'm saying it's not accidental? Is because when my case came up, I wrote several letters. I wrote almost 2 letters to the DCI seeking for protection. And nothing was done. A clear indication that this is not something that is by mistake. It's something that is well thought of. Because this is a whistleblower, and the case you are handling runs into billions of shillings, and you don't take deliberate measures to protect this person. All right? And so people suffer. People like Sangale lost his job. I remained for some time. I found the heat was too much. I left.
Where did you work exactly?
You want me to mention?
Yes, I do.
At Kenya Ports Authority.
What was your function at Kenya Ports Authority?
I was head of ethics and integrity.
Oh dear, that's a tricky job.
There's something you ran, standard ran about corruption at the port in 2019. You can go and check. It's me.
Oh, it's interesting. They took you away for doing your job.
Well,
yes, exactly.
One would
And
say.
the heat has been there all along, because the people who are involved haven't left the institution.
Okay.
They are still there. So now when I discovered the heat was too much, I just decided to take an early retirement and do my own things. And that's why I'm where I am today, doing Ethics Institute of East Africa activities.
You did mention that you perhaps, the axe will fall at some point, and we're pointing at some of these sackings that we've seen.
Yes,
in the papers today.
Yes.
You see, there's this little matter of adjudication. If you look at our laws, if you look at our constitution, the crafters of this constitution had seen this and had thought about it.
Exactly, yes.
And they put it in place. But if you look at the administration of the Uhuru government, the thing they sought to do when they came in was to water down some of these laws.
Exactly, yeah.
And they did a very good job of it. So that the functions of it, even when you move to something like enforcement, the Kenya Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission will write a list of people who should not hold public office and give reasons why.
Yes.
Those people end up holding public office.
They're cleared to run.
They are cleared to run. I mean, the very thing that particular law was supposed to do is then watered down to the point where it cannot be done. And we've seen in this government, they have also proceeded to try and water down as much as possible. You see, like now, this issue of recalling an elected leader is going to become impossible in this country. If the act that is currently, the bill that is currently being brought to Parliament...
It will be very hard to recall a leader.
No, it will not be possible. Okay? You talk about the public service. Chapter 6 was supposed to give him a code of conduct.
Exactly.
What is the code of conduct? What is it?
It's just a paper.
Yeah, because, you see, it's supposed to... You see, this corruption we keep talking about in public service, that code of conduct is to give you guidance as to know.
Exactly.
And when you talk about enforcement, if the teeth was removed from the ethics and anti-corruption, because, oh yes, they have a court, yes, they have police officers attached to them, but we saw the fight between the DPP, DCI,
and the EACC.
And we heard and we've read continuous complaints that the ethics and anti-corruption. So if you have these rules, these laws, and the very process of enforcing them is not possible. You see, people talk about countries like Singapore. The reason why they worked, they had laws.
They were enforcing.
There was a framework
of enforcement. Yes.
That told you can't do this, you can't do it. For instance, in Singapore, if you're caught drug trafficking, they kill you. This is not a joke.
They whip you if you throw garbage on the street.
It's a place where you can walk at any time. You don't even need to think about mugging or being afraid something will happen. The reason is because those laws that they have can be enforced. And now, a reporting system. You'll find someone like the head of the equivalent of their ethics and anti-corruption. That person reports either to the deputy president or a prime minister. Direct. Now, in this government and in Kenya, we've understood it. You know why? Internal auditors in government and parastatals report to the board, not to the CEO. It's a very good thought. You know why?
Yes.
The CEO cannot have any control on the internal auditor.
Yes.
Now, you tell me, how then do you have an ethics and anti-corruption that reports to an office that by and large in a country like ours has a history of having a problem. And that's the report.
It's a challenge that the EACC have. I happen to have participated in when we were drafting the Leadership and Integrity Act under the umbrella that was being co-chaired, that was being coordinated by Transparency International at that time. And what we actually envisaged to be put in the Leadership and Integrity Act is not what was there actually. Somebody woke up early in the morning and went before the Minister for Justice at that time, being Eugene Wamalwa, and the document was completely messed up with, and what we have is not actually what we anticipated. And that's why I've always said this, that the EACC may have the best for this country. Unfortunately, enforcement, you see, they don't have it because they have their hands are already tied. They may be having the best of the brains. There are people I've worked with for many years, and I really pity them, because sometimes we sit down and talk and we discuss, and I ask them, so what is the way forward? They say we can do up to where the law allows us to do.
You see that?
Now you see the idea of asking the head of civil service, it should not be the case.
That person,
they should actually be simply when they decide they need to deal with you.
The head of the civil service is too far away from this.
Exactly.
It's very remote. Ask yourself a simple question. What do you think? Why do you think crime is proliferated with ease? In the West that we keep referring to, in countries like Singapore, my friend, it is high risk and very low reward. Yeah, you can be correct.
Yes, exactly.
But my friend, the risk you run,
will get
yes,
you. Yeah.
And the reward is low. Here it's a complete
opposite.
Low risk,
high reward.
high reward.
Yes.
So how then do you expect to eliminate something that has those features?
I don't think we can skirt around this, because the truth of the matter is that if we wanted to, and I'm going to chalk it up 100% to will.
Yes.
If we wanted to deal with this thing perpendicularly, as they say,
we can.
We actually can.
Yes.
But you know what? Why would I want to remove something? It's just like you're asking. The enforcement mechanism that has been put in place, who drafted it? Is it not there? Is it not there essentially to protect some certain people?
Yes.
The other day, what we were trying to say, that procurement matters should only be dealt with at that level, so that individuals who may have been corrupt can get their day to explain why they were corrupt. Are you kidding? If you want to really deal with something, you will deal with it.
Yes, exactly.
But the truth of the matter is that these are all suggestions. It's a suggestion not to be corrupt. It's a suggestion. While you're there, if you happen to stumble upon a situation that is tempting, we may or we may not, deal with you, but we're going to shout very loudly in public to show that we don't actually stomach this thing.
Let me just tell you something. The problems of the police officers on our traffic roads, is it something new?
No.
I drive behind matatus all the time. And now there are always 4 traffic police officers at one point on a roadblock. And this day they don't put the physical roadblock. Have you realized? They just stand there. But anytime a matatu passes by, the police officer will flag it down, and then they will go where the conductor is, and you see him stretching his hand and picking the 50 or plus 100 shillings. All right? And this is something, not that they don't know. Think, for example, both the army and the police are from the disciplined forces. But then look at the army. The army are disciplined so well. You don't find such a things happening there. But the police have already developed this culture. I have, for example, did a proposal to the which I'm looking for an opportunity to meet the minister, the cabinet secretary for internal security and administration, my brother, Professor Kindiki. All right, to sit down and help this government deal with the issue of unethical conduct within our police force. It is something we can do it simply bringing on board ethics in the police service, ethics in the police. We train them on how to behave well on our roads, how to behave well when they are dealing with members of the public.
I'm sorry.
And this is the reason. This is the reason. When they go to Kikanjo, they come back. The culture they meet at the workplace is different.
No, Joseph.
So we can change their culture.
No, Joseph. People don't do wrong or right because they don't know that it is wrong.
They know.
People know how they're supposed to operate.
They know,
we know what they're supposed to do.
Exactly.
But the thing is that we've gotten away with doing
with so
the
much
wrong thing
Yes.
that it would pose as though you are unaware of the right way
It
to
is
operate.
called low risk.
Come
You
on.
run no risk by being corrupt.
You know,
Come on.
I
Even
had the
people-
opportunity.
Sorry, Joseph, but even those who have gone to the point whereby they have been sentenced. They've been sentenced.
Yes.
They've been
And they should
found
be in jail.
guilty. They are in jail, but they still can go and run for office and then be voted for, and they sit in. Come on.
Exactly. We have so many of them.
Do you think it is because that individual doesn't know right or wrong?
It's unfortunate they know. They know. Now, we need. I'm still insisting that we need to start from somewhere. All right, and every Kenyan must play a role in fighting corruption in this country. All right, the media must play their role. The public must play their role. And my view is that we are looking forward to a situation where in future, the community at the county level, national level, will be able to provide some social audits.
What do you think is
to
going
what
to
is
take?
happening in public, especially on matters budgets and especially on matters procurement, to be able to control corruption in the public institutions.
What do you think it's going to take to get to the point whereby these acts that all lead to corruption are actually going to be curtailed and folks will have an abhorrence to corruption? What do you think it's going to take?
As it is, it will take nothing.
Sorry?
It is free for everybody.
No, but in order to change it, to shift the direction, what should happen?
Honestly, it's about the leadership. You may have the best laws, you may have the best statutes in place. The Constitution is the mother of this, and it has provided for leadership. It has provided in Chapter 6 what should be done. But you are seeing what is happening. We know very well how to appoint officers in public and state officers. But we go against the Constitution, and we don't think like it is anything new. It's just normal. And sometimes you may even make reference to the previous appointments, why it happened that way. And so it's about leadership. It's only leadership that actually can be able to provide direction. It's not us, because the laws are there. The procedures are there. The regulations are in place. The leadership is what we need. We need a leader with a transformational mind. A leader who will say, I want to be judged differently from the others. I want to be judged on my role in eradicating corruption in Kenya. That is the leader we are looking for. Because the laws are there. Yes, we have done our bit.
But
We have, for example, what is the role of CAJ in terms of administration of justice in public institutions? It is there. But we still have victimization and intimidation in public office and state offices. And the CAJ is there. All right? We have the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act is there, provides the mandate of the EACC. But we still have corruption.
So you think that the move that was made yesterday,
The
in
move
this
that was-
administration, you think that's a good start?
that is a good start. But my problem is sustainability of that. Because if it is not sustained, I'm sorry, if it's not sustained, we'll just go back to where Uhuru left us.
Let me ask you something.
Yes.
If you need the head of the public service to
Yeah.
do that, what then is the board's role?
What's wrong?
That is my problem, and I've indicated here. It is not supposed to be the head of civil service. It's supposed to be the board of directors to direct the
How they
CEO
should
to
go.
step down, to direct officers working with the CEO implicated in corruption to step down. It's not the head of civil service, because what we are going to see very soon is somebody will go to court.
Well, these are conversations that cannot come to an end. They are rolling conversations that must continue. And we must thank you, Joseph Okhako, for being here this morning, the CEO of the Ethics Institute of East Africa. And thanks to all of you for being here in the room as we have Kenya's biggest conversation.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.